Hello, Next Geners. Welcome to our Friday form preview. It's Black Caviar Lightning Stakes Day. She was an all right horse, wasn't she, Hayden?
Oh, she was handy. She was not a bad horse over the sprint trip.
Nice to have Hayden Byrne from Daily Sectionals joining me today. It wasn't too bad a day last week. Probabile was a nice result for me. And then in the last, we're really keen on I'm nearly forgetting the name of the horse, Bold Star, running a place at nice odds. I thought for a point there, Mark Zara was going to carry him over the line.
Yeah, well, you're super keen on Bold Star, and he did look the winner halfway down the straight. And I was quite keen on Garner in the same race from an each way perspective. And it took Prophet's thumb in the middle just to hold both of us out. And unfortunately, we couldn't get the first prize, but we certainly got our horses in from a place perspective. And the other horse that I was super keen on during the day was Best of Days, and his run was dominant.
Yeah, really nice by Best of Days. What did you make of the Ore with Sir Dragonet? Just massive flop.
Yeah, he was. Writing was on the wall. Stable come out during the week and said that there was some concern around the dry track. He did have that OS profile that was dominant, 2,000 metres plus, and he also looked like he was a lover of wet tracks. So there was plenty of ways to knock him. And I think one thing punters might have learnt in that race is, from a statistical point of view, it doesn't matter which way you sort of drew your ratings around. It was very hard to mark Crosshaven as a favourite, and sometimes you just got to be a little bit wary when they, he's just sort of made himself favourite because he was going to sit on speed and he had an element of consistency about him. But at the end of the day, those tougher group style on-paced horses were good enough to get the job done. Outstanding ride from young bloke Zach Spain. He was the story of the day. I thought, seeing those guys jump out of the ground and get their first Group 1 victories is always good to see.
Yeah, and I thought imaging an each way play was, or the place was going to be worth a bet. But in the end, I just stayed out. I thought the best Sir Dragonet turns up and he could blow them away, or he might not turn up. So it was actually one of the races that I actually didn't want to bet in the end. But maybe kicking myself a little bit. I didn't back imaging the place, but it wasn't too bad a day. This is an interesting card at Flemington tomorrow. The first time I saw it or ran my eye over it, I thought, there's not much out of the Lightning. But as I did the form, there's actually some really nice horses running. We'll start with the first race, not one I'm overly excited about. Quantum Mechanic was a horse I was on last start. I thought 2 starts back at Flemington was a huge run to run third, but disappointed me a little bit last start at Sandown.
Yeah, the Sandown run disappointed me as well. A jump favourite, and there was a little bit of an expectation there that this horse would be winning. The horse that I was super keen on seeing was the horse, unfortunately, White Hibiscus, who I think is scratching.
Yeah.
Quantum Mechanic, he comes in here. He's from a statistical point of view, he does have a slight edge and he's on pace racing nature. Jamie Carr will tighten his winning price up dramatically. Silent Sovereign, races like this, McAvoy Camp, they're always dangerous. And I'll be looking for a run from a horse called Necessary, but not a race I really want to get stuck into early.
No, not at $2.60. I learned that lesson with Quantum Mechanic at the same price last start. No, I know you mentioned Quantum Mechanic on pace, but that run 2 starts back actually came back from back in the field. Do you feel like he's better suited on speed?
He did come from back in the field, but his speed through the first section will naturally want to put himself into the race. In a race of this sort of nature, they're not. From a speed perspective, I expect him to go below average. Jamie Carr, she'll know that if she goes back in a field like this, it'll be very difficult to win. So she'll naturally want to roll forward. If she can cross Silent Sovereign early, she can most likely follow a horse like Brave Song across. She might look for that outside leader position and try and dictate from that. You got White Hibiscus could have pushed up and put some pressure on them, but, she looks like Jamie might get across pretty easy from that outside draw.
Yeah, okay. Race 2, the Talon Dirt Stakes for 2-year-olds. We're a week out from the Blue Diamond, a couple of exposed 2-year-olds here, a couple of first starters. Ingratiating comes with that second to Enthar last start. Gulf of Suez and Frost Flowers have run well in the city. And then a couple of first starters, including Graves for Team Hawks, I think they're pretty excited about. Is this a race that you're interested in? Do we just take the Enthar form and back Ingratiating, or do we just stay out?
This is lunchtime, mate. These are second tier horses. From a 2-year-old perspective, still looking for one of them to jump out of the ground. They don't look like they can be competitive at this stage with horses like Enthar and Profiteer, etc. From a IVR perspective, anything in this race that breaks benchmark will likely be good enough to win. Integrating Gulf of Suez both look like they can start to push that sort of level, but that looks like that might be right at their top, and I'd be looking for any market moves, particularly, when you see Hawks, Williams combine, and Hayes Dabney always dangerous in the 2-year-old races. You'd be looking for market moves, etc. And now we get the inclusion of PG Moody, who's not one to throw a 2-year-old filly into a race like this if he doesn't believe that she's got some ability. So definitely a watch and learn with a future perspective in mind.
Yeah, I heard Wayne Hawks on radio this weekend giving Graves a bit of a pump up. Thinks that horse will run well at $10 and $3 the place. But if you're in a tipping comp where you get, say, 3 points for the win, you're probably going to pick Ingratiating on top. Race 3, Flemington, Regards Marie on the 7-day backup. He was really good last week, but at $2.05, is this a horse you want to get excited about? I know you gave Nerf Bosk a pump up last week and he got scratched, held back a week for this, and he's at $21.
Yeah, good race, this one. Regards Marie, the riding was on the wall. That horse is flying, and the stable knew, they really knew how well that horse was going. Clearly, just dominated that field. Right run in transit. Pretty much just repeat performance once again, posted that benchmark style. 18th best of the day, 0.2 of a length above benchmark. Again, just to sit back, even though there was an increase in speed through the first section because they walked the start prior, only a minimal squeeze through the mid-race. Third section combined, 3.9 lengths above, the last 400. It is coming in with that benchmark style profile. Hasn't been asked to do too much. You'd expect there's a little bit of elevation there, but it's going to need to elevate to beat these. A horse like Buffalo River going to be very dangerous in a race like this.
Yeah.
Again, gets dominant Jamie Carr aboard. Hard horse to ignore. Expect it's going to run a race from the front. Obviously, with a horse like that, mounting yard's going to be important, but normally a horse who fires early in the campaign. Nerf Bosk, think he's in for a good preparation. He was fantastic over in WA. He seems to be rejuvenated. He's starting to run once again up to his OS profile, which is at that 0.2 style, 2 lengths above IVR benchmark style, but that doesn't really kick in until it gets to, above, say, 2,000 metres, but he can be dominant. He was very good late November, actually, at Ascot over 1,400 metres, where he really stamped himself as, he was back, and he was back in a big way. I'm not sure whether he could run right to that number here. He might need to. They're definitely the two horses that I'm looking around. And in terms of a race shape, at knockout odds, a horse called Guizo gets right race shape here, could be a little sneaky. But for me, Buffalo River looks hard to beat. Certainly respect horses like Nerf Bosk and Guizo at big double-figure prices.
Yeah, I think I like Nerf Bosk the place at about $4 a place. You mentioned that run at Ascot, November 21st, 1,400 metres, runs a +2. I think the lead-in runs to there were really slow lead speeds and really hard races to run time. But if he gets a nice bit of pace up front, we expect Buffalo River pushes forward, probably Irish Flame pushes forward. So a little bit of speed. Guizo tends to go forward, although doesn't probably prefers leading at a slow lead speed and then making them stacking them up. But yeah, I like Nerf Bosk the place at about $4. I'd be happy to entertain that. And I think there's a couple of WA horses that are running at this meeting that are coming over with residual fitness. So up against horses like Buffalo River first up, you can probably, some horses you can just have a question mark with how they're going to turn up. But these WA horses, it's a big trip to send them here, and you'd think they'd be having good fitness on side and here to run well. So I'm happy to play Nerf Boss the place at $4. Race 4 at Flemington, 2,000 metres, benchmark 84. It's one race I'm not overly excited about. Cool, I think, is a last start winner, but performance was around benchmark. Is that going to be good enough to knock these off?
It was a good return from him. Not a good return, sorry. He had a 35-day freshen up leading into that 2,000-metre performance at Flemington. The thing that I did like about him, and I have been taken to this preparation, is he always sort of stamped himself as a horse who did have some ability, but from an IVR perspective, he certainly didn't match the sort of like the SP price that he was, and he was being beaten convincingly. He was just that trickster. He was that run on behind them. You could tell he had some ability, and you could tell he was rated by the stable. He really didn't put it all together. He's certainly come back this campaign a much stronger horse and more furnished, and he might start living up to that early hype. This is a race where, you take horses like War Critic, Takumi, Caffrey, Diplomatic Jack. They are benchmark horses, and that's right up to their very best. They're benchmark horses at 2,000 metres. Yeah. Cool's last start was the 10th best of the day, benchmark performance. The thing that I was taken with, he was good and he was dominant. The thing I really liked about him is he put the clamps down 6 to the 4 in 1.8 length acceleration, but he lost that 4 to the 200. He had a big slowdown at 1.9 lengths. Yeah. And then he accelerated. He increased his race pace 2 lengths over the last 200 metres to break benchmark over the last 200. And he was able to dominate that race in doing so, where previously he had a nice little finish on him, but he was 2 to 3 lengths away from the winners and running in that -4 range. So doors certainly open for this horse to climb off that 2,000 metre performance from last start of a benchmark figure. Anything above that, if he's got a 1 to 2 length improvement in him here, it'd be very, very difficult to see him being beaten and impossible to see him missing a first 3. If he just repeats that performance, he comes right back to the pack. It leaves horses like War Critic, Takumi, possibly even Caffrey, or maybe even a Diplomatic Jack to spoil the party. But it's one-way traffic with me with golf. But I'm not overly keen in betting at that $2.50 mark. I think he's reasonably well found, but he's a deserving favourite.
Yeah, I thought you've summed that up well. Again, the horse that in a tipping comp I'd put on top, but not really overly excited to bet in that race. This next race, now the card starts getting really good. It's a Tab Vanity, 1,400 metres. We see these 3-year-old fillies. Personal, the Oaks winner, second in 1,000 guineas, has plenty of class on side. But the two up the top of the market, and their connections that we're associated with through the Next Gen Syndicate. Zoo Dancer, Bennett Racing, Leon and Troy Corsons, comes off, I think, a plus 1.2 type performance win last start with Jamie Carr on board. And then Island Joy for First Light Racing and Allerton and Zara, and we've got a horse with them as well. $4.20 second favourite, actually comes off a plus 2 performance. So it actually rated higher than Zoo Dancer's last start. I thought the interesting thing with Island Joy was 2 starts back had the tongue tie on. So you assume there might be a few little breathing issues there. Didn't really run well. They were planning on keeping the tongue tie on last start, and they just couldn't get it on. So she raced without the tongue tie, and she produced that sort of performance. So really interesting there from a punting perspective, what they do with her here. Can we trust that performance? Because I think it was a clear sort of PB from her.
Oh, it's a massive PB. It's a big we'll find out on the weekend whether this was purely just a spike performance from her or she's gone to a completely new level.
Yeah.
And she's going to stamp herself as a genuine, second tier group filly. That was the best of the day, 2 lengths above IVR benchmark. Interesting part from her is that's clearly the fastest she's ever gone through the first section of a race in her whole career. And she was able to sustain that through the second section. Horses who do have slight breathing problems or slight wind issues always race at their absolute peak when they don't have to do anything dramatic during a race. So she was 1.3 lengths above benchmark through the first section. She maintained that speed 1.4 lengths above benchmark through the second. And she sustained a really strong last 800 above benchmark most sections. She was even able to increase off a slight slowdown between the 4 and the 2. There was a 1 length differential either side. So, 0.5 above 6 to the 4, 0.5 above 200 home. So she's a horse who definitely, from that perspective, that was the cleanest race in terms of overall race pace she'd had. She was able to just sustain that run throughout. And she, that was a big 4-length PB from her. She given little clues throughout her career that she was a horse who did have some ability. She sat around that -2 style level, but there was holes all throughout her data saying she's definitely got no ceiling and she's got the capabilities of being a big climber, and she certainly stamped that Flemington. Zoo Dance is the other interesting runner for the Bennett crew. Her performance second up Moonee Valley, she had a monster squeeze through the mid-race, sustained a really strong last 600. Even though she was 2.2 lengths below IVR benchmark on that occasion, the alarm bells were ringing that this was definitely a filly who had above average ability and could easily leap into that second tier style mares races. The Group 2, Group 3 grade away from the A graders. Her most recent performance, Flemington, massive increase in speed through the first section, sustained it through the second. There was a decline late, but she was more than entitled to decline, and she was a good winner. 4th best of the day, 1.2 lengths above. Again, no ceiling on her. So they're 2 horses who, they come in with a little bit of difference between the 2 of them. They're different style of horses. Go down to Personal. Oliver, from an IVR perspective, has a PB 2.7 lengths above IVR benchmark and sustained anywhere between that benchmark to +2 range last campaign, stamping her as a genuine group filly. She's obviously the measuring stick for the other 2, but the other 2 can certainly measure up, particularly over the 1,400 metres, where they might have a slight little edge if Personal's being set for the longer races this campaign. So very interesting race. When you look at the talent of the trainers engaged in this race, combined with the talent of the riders, Carr, Zara, Oliver, Williams, Lane, etc., got a real cat and mouse feel about it this race. And I think Jamie gets a few advantages, and I'm looking for a very, very positive performance from Zoo Dancer. Also from Island Joy. Not much between them, hard to split.
Very tough race. As you said, Island Joy, she produces that +2 again. You can sort of start to trust her form, and she probably starts stamping herself at that second level. So do you take $4 to find out whether she can do it again? Do you back Zoo Dancer, who's just a consistent mare, always in the finish? Or do you back Personal on class? And we had this discussion with Probabeel last week, thinking, well, Probabeel's probably got bigger targets in mind, but will Probabeel just be too good for that field? And she was. And Personal could do what Probabeel did last week and just thrive with a couple of good horses around her. She might just chase them down. So I think it's a 3-horse race. We probably thought that with the Probabeel race last week, didn't we? With Snap Dancer and Sierra Sue, that you could bet all 3 and make a profit. Perhaps you structure your betting that if you like one, you bet one to win and bet the other 2 to cover yourself.
Yeah, certainly. But you've also got to keep in mind with races like this, when the 3-year-old fillies return in the autumn, you can get some big leapers. And there's some horses here, Star Rail, Salto Angels, Pincher Larks, Thunder Peaks. They've tempted. They've got the they've got all the foundation to leap. And, you know, if one of them came out and said, okay, I've really matured and strengthened over the summer break, and I'm ready to stamp myself as a genuine group style mare in these filly or mare in these sort of races, and I can go to the next step. You know, you're talking about Zoo Dancer and Island Joy. They've had the opportunity to come out, prove that they've strengthened up, prove that they're better this time in. And they've both put those two peak runs on. There's nothing preventing a bunch of these horses from doing the same thing. So from a winning perspective, there's not going to be many surprises here if something does elevate.
There was a really good post by I think it was Brad Davidson and I think it was Ray Hicks who was involved in it as well, with about 200 different horses where they're heading for this spring. So I might try and get that up at some point today and see what Lindsay Parker doing with Personal, because as you said, she's a super talent. They could head to races like the Australian Guineas, perhaps the Coolmore in Sydney. So I'll try and get that up at some point today, and we can have a look, because class-wise, and I think even just PB-wise, I don't think any other horse in this race has that plus 2.5 or higher to their name. Race 6, this is one race I'm not overly interested in at all. It's $4 a field with Skyman and Milton Park, who I think I'd be right in saying they're between benchmark and +1 horses. And then, it's a pretty long tail to this field. Is this one that you're excited about at all?
Not a race that I'm excited about from a betting perspective. Skyman, he's been an exciting horse ever since he's been in Australia, and I've waited for him to take the next step. His first up run indicated that possibly this time in he could do it. He would only need to improve, say, lengthen a little bit to be mighty hard to beat in a race like this. King Magnus been good this campaign. You know, as horses like High and Dry, Heavenly Emperor and Co., top of the grid here from an IVR perspective, you're sitting around 1.5 lengths above, and you pretty much go right down to the bottom of the deck and you're at benchmark. So very, very little between these runners, and it might just take a smart ride or a little bit of luck throughout the race to determine who's winning here. Skyman, to me, is the horse who's got the most upside. I think most of the others here have about hit their peak or about hit their level.
Yeah.
A horse like the Duzart, he's a horse who promised the world. He looked like he was quite smart coming from overseas, but he hasn't produced that since he's been here. So he's the watch runner for mine. Betting wise, I don't want to touch it, but Skyman to me is the horse to beat because I think he's got the most upside.
Okay, and they've got him favourite for this race as well. I've just got up that Sky Racing column. So the target with Personal kicks off in the Vanity, heads to the CUNY, then to Sydney for the Vinery, and then the ATC Oaks. So in for a 4-run prep, peaking in an Oaks. So you can understand why there are 2 horses above her favoritism-wise. So perhaps Personal's one of the horses that you bet to cover yourself and take your pick out of the consistent Zoo Dancer, or perhaps the horse that can back up what she did last start in Island Joy. Race 7 is the CS Hayes Stakes. Really interesting race as well. A lot of these 3-year-old boys will head towards races like the Australian Guineas at their next start. ASA is $4.60 favourite. Brando comes from New Zealand and adds an X factor there. I'd be interested to hear if you've got any data on him. Cam Bourne at $7.50. Tagaloa, last year's Blue Diamond winner, at $8. Here to Shock has a bit of talent for Brent Stanley. First time we see him at a city metro track outside of Sandown. Mwanga at 12. Good horse in the spring. Dom to Shoot, WA horse. Cherry Tortoni at $13. It actually goes all the way down to Grand Slam at $27, who was meant to run in the Cox Plate from memory before getting scratched. This is an interesting race.
Yeah, we've got a little bit of a mixed bag of lollies here from a form perspective. There's going to be a lot of people sitting back and scratching their heads. Do you trust the big ASAR performance from the Guineas, where he was he's 3.3 lengths above IVR benchmark over 1,600 metres, when narrowly beaten? Look, the winner to Ole Kirk, who's a star, unfortunately beaten first up for those who followed him in. Then you bring a horse like Brando over from New Zealand, who looks promising. A few people not really too sure what to do with a horse like Moanga, Jamie Carr Factor. She's one of the horses who switched from Chris Waller to Annabelle Neesham, who's a star. Then you throw in the other horses that you've named, including Dom to Shoot, who's an interesting runner, comes over from Western Australia, where he's been very good. And a horse who's not the punter's best friend at the moment, but he's certainly high quality and he's a star on his days, Tagaloa, who's just sort of drifted off into the wilderness at the moment. It's a tough race to assess from an IVR perspective. This is another one that's going to be jammed right up. You're going to have about a length spread between probably 8 of them. Dom to Shoot's Grand Slams, Brando, Moanga, ASAR, AIM, Cherry Tortoni, Tagaloa, Dom to Shoot. There's not much between this, and Mounting Yard A will be vital. B, Black in Running will be vital. Tagaloa, he's going to get his last chance for mine. This is his best opportunity for quite a while to win a race. And if he's going to go back to that early stages of dominance, which he said he was capable of, this is going to be his best chance to do it. Barrier 1, Luke Curry. I like the rider change. He's going to get every possible chance, providing he doesn't get buried rail. But I think Luke will push up, hold a position. It just depends how aggressive they are from the outside. Horses like Grand Slam here to shock. I'd expect Brando to be ridden midfield or worse. They can push forward with ASAR. Damien Lane most likely wouldn't want to lead, but I'm sure he'd be looking for a position, stalking those leaders, and Zach the Boss can be aggressive early. If Tagaloa can push through and hold Zach the Boss and ASAR out for the first 300 metres, he should be able to hold a position behind leader, make him a dangerous runner in the straight. Moanga's the one who I'm looking for a big leap from him this campaign. He sort of teased everybody and said, I'm one who's got a little bit of ability, but he never really bought it in the bigger feature races. He's going to get an opportunity here. Jamie will get everything out of that horse. ASAR, he's running well without winning.
What numbers did you have last start behind Portland Sky for those horses?
Behind Portland Sky, that was just a race where the race was over quite quickly with, that horse just dominating from the front and always had the ability to do that. In terms of IVR numbers from that race, you had Portland Sky sitting around the 2 lengths above IVR benchmark, and then you were 1.2 and 1 length above IVR benchmark for ASAR and Tagaloa.
Yeah.
Best part. Oh, certainly. And they're great returns. Best part about it, 6 length increase in 6.6 length mid-race squeeze from ASAR. Hit a peak between the 6 and the 4 of 3.2 lengths above. And even though he did have a slowdown and combined with the conditioning decline, he was strong through that last 600 metres. So, him stepping up to the 14 can only be a benefit to him. And Tagaloa, him, same 7.5 length squeeze through the mid, huge sustained 600 metres. So both of these horses have come back in A-grade order. I think, was it second up last campaign? Or the campaign, was it last campaign Tagaloa jumped favourite or second favourite in sharp 1,400 metre Group 1, wasn't it? Yeah,
he ran, and he was a horse that I was sort of looking at for this race. I think it was first up last prep. In the Rupert Clark, that was second up. So he resumed in the McNeil over 1,200. You'll remember Flying Award was flying home and got second to Immortal Love, and Tagaloa got third. Then went to 1400 Group 1, Rupert Clark, handicap on the minimum, and Behemoth, who were really keen on, got the job done. And he was only beaten 1.8 there. And I was just thinking with this form, like if you had Behemoth in this race, who's getting within 2 lengths of Behemoth? And the two that I thought were Tagaloa and Asar. So then the Caulfield Guineas was third up and nothing really went right. So, I was happy with Tagaloa and Asar's returns last start. Again, leaning on that Sky Racing column. Asar's main target is the Australian Guinea. So you would expect that he's going to be pretty close to fully fit on Saturday. Tagaloa as well, should he run well, is heading to the Australian Guineas, whereas a horse like Mwanga is going to need a few runs, according to Annabelle Neesham, and the target is probably the Rose Hill Guineas, which is going to be a bit later in the autumn. So for me, Asar and Tagaloa are the two that I'm interested in.
Yeah, I completely agree. They're the two, to me, that look the most likely. From Brando, who exciting New Zealander, he'll be good to see here. And I'm expecting, even though he's got a little sticky draw here, Dom to Shoot can certainly, he will have some residual fitness from that Ascot campaign.
Yep.
He was good against the better performed horses over there, and it wouldn't shock me to see him running well here or even winning. So, hard to split. Asar, Tagaloa, Brando, Mwanga, I'm looking for runs with Dom to Shoot.
Okay, and just quickly, can you entertain Grand Slam at all at $27?
He's another one who's got that benchmark to +1 style profile, which you're going to be somewhere around the mix, and all these boys need to do is improve. There's a big clump of them that only need to find a length and a half, and they'd be mighty hard to beat in a race like this. So, if you look at the very, very top of the pile, you've got Asar with a +3.3. That was from his Guineas performance. And everyone else is right around that benchmark style profile. So, again, 3 length spread. Whoever wins will have most likely come on and found that required length and a half to be winning races like this.
All right, let's move on to the big one, the Black Caviar Lightning Stakes. I'm super excited. Would have been out there tomorrow working if not for this 5-day lockdown. So going to be watching from home. Bivouac, $2.70 favourite. Nature Strip, $4. September Run, the Coolmore Stud Stakes winner who loves the straight, $5.50. Fabigino, $8.50. Pippi, who always runs well first up, $9. Elite Street, 5 wins from 8 starts over in Perth. We see him for the first time here at $15. Swat's that, $17. And Halvorsen at $67. Break it down for us, Hayden.
Well, it's an intriguing race, isn't it? You can't see any other way than, you can be 99% sure, 98% sure, there's still got to be an element of chaos factor in there. That Nature Strip, Pippi and Fabigino will all go forward and race hard on the pace here. It's going to be a battle at tactics. 1,000 metres down the straight. You expect the ball to head out to the outside, middle of the track to the outside. That'll be the place to be. It's a difficult race, and tactics-wise, it's going to be mighty intriguing. Nature Strip, he was electric again. He'd have to be the best trialer in the country. And he'd have to be one of the best trialers I've seen in quite a long time. The thing I really liked about his latest trial was in the 2 campaigns previous, I've had a big gut feeling that he's left the first up run in the trial, where I didn't feel that with his jump out the other day at Flemington. Straight suits him down to the ground, especially first up, 1,000 metres. Jamie's a star down the straight. She's a fantastic, if you've got to have Jane McDonald off, Jamie's certainly the rider you want on down the straight. the interesting part with a race like this is it's going to be the pressure's going to switch, and it's when these three riders, Damien Lane on Pippi, who's got an element of conservatism about him, particularly early in sprint races. Geordie Childs, similar rider profile, same with Jamie Carr. I don't expect these three riders to try anything very early in the race. I expect them all to jump and let their horses find their natural rhythm, which still is quite quick for a race. 1,000-meter race, they're still going to go quick. But nothing like the breakneck style speed that you're seeing from Nature Strip in the races leading up to the Everest last campaign. It might be anywhere between 150 and 250 meters into this race where one of them is going to have a go. They will twist the screw. The handlebars will go down and they'll let one of their runners accelerate and try and make this a little bit of a gut buster from that particular point. What that does with a race like this, it makes it very, very hard for you to sit back in the field. So pretty much there's going to be an elastic band, and it's going to be about 4 lengths. And anything back from that 4 lengths is going to be very, very difficult to win from. Purely because of the velocity that these horses are going to produce between that, say, 700 and 150 metre mark. The petrol you're going to have to burn to get yourself into the race and give yourself an opportunity to out-sprint these late is quite difficult. For me, on race shape, I'm having a little bit of trouble splitting both Nature Strip and September Run. I think Craig will stalk those three and land in the perfect position. Bivouac's a slight concern for mine. He's a horse, is vital for a horse like Bivouac that he can't overexert through that first section. That's why he can be dominant through the straight. He's like a superstar version of Cruzado. Cruzado is a horse where if you can get him and you can balance him up and not spend all the pennies through the first section, they can sustain and they can be very dominant late in their races. Bivouac's the elite version of that. You bust him up through the first section, he's gone. Challenge for Bossy's going to be keeping him in within that 4-length elastic band. If he drops outside of that, it'd be very difficult for him to win. So for mine, I can't really split September Run and Nature Strip. I'd probably have September Run slightly ahead of Nature Strip. And then we drop down to Elite Street, who, providing he's travelled well, he's not here to play games. He can certainly measure up to these horses, not only here in the Lightning, but definitely in the Newmarket, which will be a much better race for him, but it will be a much better race for Bivouac also. So for me, it's going to be September Run, Nature Strip, hard to split. September Run just on top, looking for a big run from Elite Street. Further back, you look for horses like Bivouac and Swats that to be running on late.
I think you've summed it up pretty well, as you usually do. Fabergino, for me, at her best, she's right in the mix, but she doesn't seem to be producing those sort of +4 numbers like she did at this track and distance last February. I think she's sort of running around that +1 to +2, and I don't think that's going to be enough here. What sort of number are you thinking is going to win this? Is it going to be a +4 or?
I think it might be +3.5 on the low, maybe +5 to +5.5 on the high. Which, we've got quite a number of runners here who are capable of that.
Yep. I really like Elite Street. Silly Me took $3 the place yesterday. Has drifted out to $3.60 now, and maybe there is something in it that they want to peak this horse next start in the Newmarket. Although I just think this horse in these, if it's not on Saturday in the Newmarket, is going to stamp himself as one of the best sprinters in the country. And if he didn't do that we certainly didn't get respected in WA, because I think he started $31 in the Winterbottom and absolutely brained them with a sort of plus 4.5 type performance. You talk about that 4-length elastic band. I think he sat 3.5, 4 lengths off them that day. And he was still going plus 4.5 to the 800, and then they slowed down, and then he reeled off a plus 3.1 last 400. So had he not copped that slowdown, he potentially, I think he ran a plus 4.8, and that's getting close to really elite numbers. His first run in Perth was over 1,000 meters. I think it was October 17, and he produced a plus 4. And he reeled off the best last 8, 6, 4, and 2 of the day. That just screams a horse that's going to thrive at Flemington. As you said, if he does get a bit too far back, that's why I'm really keen on the place, because I'm expecting him to fly home. And if he doesn't win, I think he's going to be right in those placings at $3.60. I'm happy to find out the place. I'm generally a punter that likes to find these double figure horses and have sort of 10 the win and 40 the place. We had a bit of success doing that last spring with horses like Hey Doc and Yulong Prince and Affair to Remember. And I think Elite Street is another one here who can run well. If he doesn't win, I think he's going to be running into the placing. So I'm happy to play my $50, sort of 10 the win, 40 the place on Elite Street.
He's definitely an exciting horse, mate, and no matter how he performs on the weekend, I think it'd be all eyes on him heading towards the Newmarket, because he's certainly one who can run a monster there.
Yeah, actually, you've enticed me to actually look up the Newmarket odds and see what price I can get, because if he runs well here, he's going to be shortening, and naturally because punters are going to gravitate to him at the lightweight at the handicap. So won't be too bad an idea to get on now. Although I did learn the lesson last week, didn't I, with Profiteer encouraging punters to have something at the Blue Diamond. Well, he might not be heading there now, unfortunately, but if he did, he would have been starting $2.50, and we had got $15. So you sort of well, you take it as a little win, but it's in the end, it's a loss, isn't it?
Yeah, bookie always wins.
Yeah, exactly. Last race of the day is benchmark 84. I think the market is pretty right. In fact, I'd be happy to back both Laverod and Zakat at $4.40. And I think one of those two horses will win here.
Yeah, outside of Zakat, it's not a race that I'm overly interested in. I thought Zakat coming down from Sydney, the thing that I do like about horses, particularly first time down the straight, everybody gets a little bit all down the straight, not sure, is this the style of horse would be suited to that? You very rarely go wrong when you find horses who settle at a good speed, not overly fast through their first sections. They've got both the ability to put in massive exertions through the second section if required. If not, they just need to gradually increase their speed with the field. And if they can get away with that gradual increase, they've got the ability to produce electric late straight line speed. Zakat's one of those horses, off a benchmarky style tempo. He's got the ability to produce anywhere between 2 length to a 6 length above benchmark last 400, and can increase speed last 2. That makes you dangerous down a Flemington straight. Horse, for me, he'd definitely be on top. Terbium was electric first up. He looked like he was in to produce the promise that he showed earlier. His last 2 have been okay without being great. He's going to be there somewhere. And Laverod comes in with the reverse style of Zakat, who he's been forced to race on speed in WA over shorter, over 1,200-1,400 metres in races where there's been a lot of high pressure. He can sustain high pressure and he can increase that through the midsection. So he comes in with the opposite to Zakat, where he can be a very, very difficult horse to catch down the straight where he can pretty much bust you up. He can make a big move at the 600 metre mark, and it can be race over 200 metres out. Everybody can have no petrol left. So I did with you there, mate. I think one of the two will be winning. The other horse who I had a little bit of interest in was Platini, but that's a horse who done majority of its racing on wet tracks, shown a little bit on dry ground to suggest there is some ability there. So it's a watch runner for mine. But it's a cat on top from Laver Rod and Platini.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards Zakat from Laver Rod, but I could back them both and hope the one gets up. But yeah, I think these horses can sort of run that +1 figure, and that's going to make them pretty hard to beat. Wrapping up, and we'll just quickly touch on last week's Sydney. There were some good horses that went around. Written Beauty was outstanding. North Pacific and Ole Kirk got done. What did you make of their runs?
I put them both in the forgive file. They're both star horses, both expected to win. I didn't think they did too much wrong. There was a little bit of procrastination there on North Pacific. He was okay to the line. I'd give him one more chance. Ole Kirk, he was, I don't know, I just sort of thought James rode him like, not only was he the best horse in the race, but he rode him like he might have been one of the best horses he ever ridden, and set him a bit of a task. And he looked like he was still going to get there 100 metres from home, but condition-wise, that gave out. That track played a little bit funny too. So, if anything that was highly respected on the day, I'd be willing to forgive and see how they go next time.
And Profiteer?
It was just electric. Definitely didn't bust the clock in terms of an IVR profile, but he was just exciting to watch. He just burnt a second. He burnt a second-rate crop, and it just gave that image of this is just simply electric. So, it would have been fantastic to see him run in the diamond against Enthar. Everybody wants to go with the big carrot, but sometimes if your horse is up and ready to go, you may as well take the chocolate while it's available. So, it's up to that stable. They got a mission in front of them now to keep him ready, up and going until that Golden Slipper. That should be an exciting race.
All right, let's sum up some of our bets today. I thought for tomorrow, I thought race 3, I want to take on Regards Marie at $2.05. I'm going to have something on Nerf Bosk at $4 the place. Race 5, I think I'm going to back Zoo Dancer and Island Joy with Personal as a bit of a saver. I think we can spread bet there and make a bit of profit, although I'm a bit wary of horses like Salto Angel and Star Rail resuming. So got to sort of figure out what my what plan I'm going to take there. Race 7, the two I'm interested in, ASAR and Tagaloa. ASAR's $4.60 favourite, which is a pretty decent price, and then you get out to $8 for Tagaloa. So a bit of value there. I've already had a bet on Elite Street, the place. I'll probably end up with my $10 a win, $40 the place on him. And race 9, I think we can back Zakat and Laver Rod and make a profit there with leaning towards Zakat on top.
I think you've summed that up pretty well. I'm very similar to you. I think ASAR is a good play at an each-way price. I couldn't talk anybody out of saving on Tagaloa. ASAR at the price, very enticing to mine in the big race. Again, I'm quite happy each way on September run, with Nature Strip being extremely hard to beat. In the last race, the Cat is another one who that each way price will present itself again. And he will be there. And I think we touched on a few earlier that at big prices that if you were prepared to have, something each way on, I think Buffalo River will be extremely hard to beat from the front. That's the best race that I've seen him in for quite some time. And I wouldn't be surprised if Nerf Bosk or Guizo ran a little bit of a race there.
Were you watching Lightning Stakes Day tomorrow?
I'll be in the comfort of my lounge room where I will be until approximately 11:59 on Wednesday.
I think there'll be a lot of cricketers that have nothing to do and will be watching the races this Saturday. A few people that probably had weddings to go to that will have to flick on the races. So Channel 7's in for a good day ratings-wise, mate. Good luck on the punt. I think we can have a good day. Flemington was one of our favourite tracks last spring, so fingers crossed we can keep the form going from, last time we punted there was Stakes Day.
Yes, it was. And just a little bit of a tip for the boys at home that are watching, ladies, you might want to just block your ears for a second. But if you, the best bet for the weekend comes up tonight. If you could sit on the couch and make yourself look very disappointed that the big plans that you had for Valentine's Day on the weekend have all of a sudden been destroyed by Dan Andrews. And unfortunately, that money might have to go into the TAB account and be spun around on Saturday instead of, because once it gets to tonight, mate, the shops are closed and the restaurants they're gone. So a little bit of Uber Eats for the Dale on Sunday, and that's about all you can come up with. So yeah, it's a bit of a shame, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't think my wife watches this. I hadn't planned a romantic dinner, but I might have to plan a picnic in the backyard.
Yeah, I didn't even know it was Valentine's Day until I seen it on Twitter. So, yeah, it's one of those days that it creeps up on most of us every year. But there's plenty of boys who'll have an extra 100 to 150 to spin at Flemington. So just take care of it, fellas.
Mate, good luck punting on Saturday, and I'll chat to you next week.
Good luck.